Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great-Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Comedy on this Tuesday, Harold Peary as the Great-Gildersleeve from 80 years ago, May 9th, 1943, The Wedding List. And we thank you for tuning in on this Tuesday. This is the 9th day of May, the 129th day of the year, 236 days remaining. Christopher Columbus left Spain on this date in 1502 for his fourth and final journey to the New World. Happy birthday, Reno, Nevada, the city of Reno, founded on this date in 1868. 1945, the final German surrender to Marshal Georgy Zhukov at Berlin-Karsdorf, signed by Colonel General Hans-Jürgen Stumpf as the representative of the Luftwaffe, Field Marshal William Keitel as the chief staff of the OKW, and Admiral Hans-Georg von Frundsberg as commander-in-chief of the Kriegsmarine. That was hard to do. In 1945, also Hermann Goering captured by the Army. 1950, L. Ron Hubbard published his book on Dianetics entitled Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. 1955, Sam and Friends debuted on a local TV station, marking the first television appearance of both Jim Henson and what would become Kermit the Frog and the Muppets. That was in 1955. 1960, the Food and Drug Administration approved sale of the birth control pill. 1967, Muhammad Ali stripped of his boxing titles for refusing induction into the armed services.
America at this moment is paying greatly for her stand in Asia. She's losing world power and money. Boys are dying daily. So this just comes with the price you pay for taking stands that you believe in that are unpopular in certain societies.
Muhammad Ali stripped of his boxing titles on this date in 1967. House of Representatives Judiciary Committee on this date in 1974 opened formal and public impeachment hearings against President Richard Nixon.
I don't need to stress again the importance of our undertaking and the wisdom, decency, and principle which we must bring to it. We understand our high constitutional responsibility. We will faithfully live up to it.
Committee Chairman Peter Rodino. In Florida on this date in 1980, Liberian freighter SS Summit Venture hit the Sunshine Skyway Bridge over Tampa Bay, sending 35 people, mostly in a single bus, to a watery death as a 1,400-foot section of the bridge collapsed. 1994, Nelson Mandela inaugurated as South Africa's first black president, and in 2005, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger selected as the successor of Pope John Paul II. Passing away on this date in history, the very funny Alan King.
Well, like I've been reading about brainwashing and psychological warfare, if the scientists want to come to my house for 2 weeks, my wife will show you how to pick a brain apart.
The very funny Alan King passing away on this date in history, along with food manufacturer C.W. Post. You remember Post Toasties growing up? That's him. Also, actor Edmund O'Brien, country singer Keith Whitley, Mrs. Phil Harris, Alice Faye, Lena Horne, Vidal Sassoon, and Little Richard. My goodness. On this date, birthdays, such as it is, Canadian-born musician Hank Snow, Please Help Me, I'm Falling. Abolitionist John Brown, shipbuilder Henry Kaiser, journalist Mike Wallace from the Ticking Clock 60 Minutes, although we have him doing a couple of game shows. Also British actor Albert Finney. Actress and politician Glenda Jackson, 87 today. Film producer and writer from Mary Tyler Moore, Simpsons, and Terms of Endearment, James L. Brooks, 83. Tommy Rowe, Dizzy, my head is spinning. did some wonderful music. Tommy Rowe, 81 years old today. Turning 77 today, you know her as Murphy Brown. You know her as Candace Brown. But she also was on with her father on Groucho Marx's quiz show You Bet Your Life as Candy Bergen at age 11. Candy Bergen, Candace Bergen, 77 today. Singer-songwriter Clint Holmes, 77 today. Billy Joel is a big shot at 74. R&B singer Tamia Hill is 47. And you remember her most from Rent, Rosario Dawson, 44 today. Those just a few of the people celebrating the 9th day of May as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
From 80 years ago, May 9th, 1943, Harold Peary is the Great Gildersleeve. That's next on this Tuesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now we go smack in the middle of World War II, May 9th, 1943. Harold Peary as the Great Gildersleeve.
Kraft presents the Great Gildersleeve. The Kraft Cheese Company will also bring you Bing Crosby every Thursday night. Present each week at this time Harold Peary as the Great Gildersleeve, written by John Whedon and Sam Moore. Well, it's the second week in May, and May is when Summerfield really comes into bloom. But while others take their ease, Summerfield's fighting water commissioner girds himself for a Saturday morning of busy accomplishment at the office.
Gotta be going. Let's see. Briefcase, I've got it. Handkerchief in my pocket. Hat on my head. Goodbye, Bertie.
Bye, Miss Gildersleeve.
One side there, Leroy.
So long, Unc. Don't let anybody put anything over on you.
When did anybody ever put anything over on me?
Are you kidding?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Yes, Bertie.
Are you going to be home for lunch today?
No, Bertie, I'm afraid not. Busy day ahead. Will that upset your plans?
Oh, no, so that means we can have a 16-point dinner.
Yeah. Well. Leroy, you know something?
What, Unc?
I do believe this grass is getting long enough to mow.
Oh, now, Unc.
Get the jump on it, my boy. It's the only way. Never let it get ahead of you.
Gosh, you're liable to stunt its growth if you cut it now.
Yes. Just once over lightly with a lawnmower, Leroy. It won't do the grass a bit of harm. It'll do you a lot of good. I'd mow it myself if I weren't so busy.
Yeah. Throckmorton. Hi, Mrs. Ransom.
Oh, hello, Leila. Leroy, stick in your shirt tail. You look disgusting.
Throckmorton, you're not leaving.
Well, yes, I was. I was just on my way to the office, Leila. Busy day.
But what about your promise?
Promise?
You were going to go over the list of wedding invitations with me, who we were going to send them to and all.
Oh, so I was. Well, I'll tell you what, Leila. You just decide. Anything you decide's all right with me.
But aren't you interested in who comes to our wedding, Throckmorton?
Why, of course, Leila. I'm very interested. It's just that I've got a lot of important things to do down at the office.
Is anything more important than our wedding?
Watch it, Unc. It's a booby trap.
Leroy, I think we can dispense with your presence now.
Yes, run along, Leroy, and play with some of your little friends.
What a character.
Now come and sit down on the porch with me, Throckmorton. It won't take long.
Yes, but Leila...
You've been putting it off, but we've just got to tend to it now. We've got to order the invitations, and engraving takes time. Sit down beside me.
I don't know anything about these things, Leila.
Well, I've made up a sort of a tentative list here. Now, first there's my great-aunt Elizabeth.
Oh, before I forget it, put down the McGees, Fibber and Molly. Want to be sure to have them.
Well, let's discuss that later. We can't just invite everybody, you know. It's a small church.
Well, Fibber McGee is a small man.
Well, we'll get to them. But my great-aunt Elizabeth, we've got to invite her because when Beauregard and I were married, she sent us a chafing dish.
We can't use more than one chafing dish.
Oh, silly. And there's George William Hungerford. He's a sort of a cousin of Beauregard's. You know, it was the most awful thing. Beauregard and I never thought to invite George William, and he sent us a dozen hand-painted service plates with pheasants on them. I know Beauregard would never forgive me if I didn't invite him this time.
Well, we want Beauregard to rest easy. Send George William a pass.
Well, then there's Aunt Ellen, Uncle Chase, and I thought I'd kind of like to invite poor little old Darwin Shove. Well, aren't you going to ask me about Darwin?
What about Darwin?
Well, poor Darwin. He was terribly in love with me at the time I got engaged to Beauregard. There was a sort of a misunderstanding, and somehow he got the idea that I was engaged to him. Oh, it was terribly embarrassing. He threatened to shoot himself if I married anybody else, but he didn't. He's in real estate.
And still hasn't shot himself?
Oh, no, he's doing real well, they tell me. But he's never married. I thought it would be nice if we invited him.
Oh, yeah, invite him and tell him to bring his six-shooter, Leila.
And then, of course, we've got to invite Beauregard's mother.
Listen, Beauregard had his wedding. What about my friends, Leila? I have a few friends, you know.
Of course, Throckmorton. That's why I wanted you to go over the list with me. Now, who would you like to invite?
Well, there's Fibber McGee and Molly.
Yes, you mentioned them. Who else?
The McGees live next door to me, in Wistful Vista.
Yes, I know. Who else, Throckmorton?
McGee. Well, there's the McGees. I can't give you the whole list now, Leila. Look, it's late. I've got to get down to the office. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go over the whole thing with you this afternoon.
Well, do you promise?
Promise.
Cross your heart?
Cross my heart. I do it right now, but I've got a million things on my mind.
Throckmorton?
Yes, Leila?
Aren't you forgetting something?
My briefcase.
Oh, no. Not your briefcase.
No? What then?
Well, I never had to remind Beauregard when he went off to the office.
Oh. Goodbye, honey.
That's better.
Beauregard. Let's see now. Hardly know where to begin here. Oh, here's a letter. Dear Mr. Gildersleeve, it has recently come to our attention that you're about to embark upon the happy venture of matrimony. Allow us to be the first to congratulate you on this important step in life. Well, have to send them an invitation. As a man of foresight, we know that you will want to look to the future, and when the time comes that we may supply you, what is this? Faithfully yours, Summerfield Diety Service. Oh. What else have we got here? Here's another one. Dear Mr. Gildersleeve, you call yourself a water commissioner? Oh, my goodness.
All right, Gildy, we're closing up here now. Come on.
Oh, hello, Judge. Dr. Pettibone. How are you, Doc?
Get your hat, Gildersleeve. You're coming with us.
What do you mean?
Have you forgotten what day this is?
No, it's Saturday.
Well, it's also opening day at the club.
By George, so it is, Horace. Opening day.
Come on, we got our golf clubs in the car. We'll stop the house, pick up yours. Pals will meet us out at the club.
Oh, gee, I'd like to, fellas, but I can't. Not today.
What do you mean you can't?
Sure, they can't open the golf season without us, the old foursome. You know that.
I know, fellas, but you better just go along without me.
Oh, nonsense. You want to get out on that old course and get some fresh air.
Doctor's orders, Gildy.
Gosh, I'd like to, but I can't. I've got important things to do.
What have you got to do that's so important?
Well, things. Besides, I promised.
Promised who?
Leila.
Uh-oh.
I promised her I'd help her with a list of invitations for the wedding.
Gildersleeve, don't tell me she's got you tied to her apron strings already.
I guess we know who's going to wear the slacks in that family.
No, see here, Hooker.
Alas, poor Gildersleeve. I knew him well. Another good man gone wrong. Well, come on, Judge. I guess we'll just have to find somebody else.
I'm sorry, Gildy, old man. We're going to miss you out there. Lovely day, too.
Gee, I'd like to, fellows.
You know that dog-leg hole you always had trouble with? Well, they straightened it out now. They say you can drive the green in one if you're lucky. I only mention it in passing.
Now, don't urge him, Doc. Don't urge him. Maybe Gildy's doing the wise thing. After all, he's getting on in years.
Who is?
Perhaps he knows best. If he's reached the time of life when he feels he ought to settle down and just spend his declining years puttering around the house, I think we should let him.
Listen, you old goat, I'll give you 2 strokes a hole and beat the pants off of you.
Well, come on, then. What are we waiting for?
Well, boys, all even up to the 18th green. Pretty close match, I'd say.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for Gildersleeve's hole-in-one, we'd have beat you long ago. Lucky stiff.
Yeah, don't call it luck, Judgy. I was just trying to make a hole-in-one, you know.
Would you mind not laughing when I'm about to putt, Gildersleeve?
Sorry, Powers. Go right ahead.
Thank you.
That's a beauty, partner. You're surely down in 5.
Never mind the gab, Judge. Go ahead and shoot.
I'll shoot all right. This is a very difficult putt.
Nothing to it, Judgy. Just relax. That's the secret.
Gildersleeve, if you don't behave, I won't print your hole-in-one on the paper.
All right, Powers. You can't take a little joke. Shoot, Judge.
Good shot, Hooker. You're sure of a 5 yourself. Go ahead, Pettibone.
Thank you. Say, it almost went in.
Concede your 5, Doc.
Thanks.
Looks like we'll have to play some extra holes.
Not if I sink my putt, Judge. If I sink this, we win.
Oh, don't be silly. That's an 18-footer.
If I can sink him from 120 yards, I can sink him from 18 feet. Every shot a little gem, fellas. Stand back, everybody. Quiet.
Nobody's making a sound.
I want it quiet anyway. Now, watch this.
Gildersleeve, don't get fancy. This is no time to try a one-handed putt.
Oh, that's one of my specialties, Doc. Look, every shot, a little gem. Yeah. Pay off, boys, pay off. Nice hot shower. That's the best part of the game. We were sailing along
on a moonlight bay. Oh, that's terrible. Cheer up, Judge. It'll be your turn to win someday.
That's right, Judge. Next time I'll be your partner.
Of all the lucky...
forget it, Powers. Come on, let's sing.
Yeah. We were sailing along on a moonlight bay. We could hear the voices singing. They seem to say, you have stolen my heart. Now don't go away. As we sang Love Goes Sweet Song on Moonlight Bay.
Not so bad.
Well, it was fine except for you, Judge. I think your throat is burned out of bearing.
That reminds me, the Cokes are on the winners.
Huh?
Oh, Eddie, Phil, where are those doggone boys?
Yes, sir.
Oh, Eddie, get the drinks ready and give Mr. Gildersleeve the check.
Yes, sir.
Well, fellas, here comes the old cold finish. Hang on to your hats now, boys. Give me a towel, somebody.
Gildersleeve, I can see you've put on a little weight.
Huh?
What's more, I can see where you've put it.
Well, you're my doctor, Pettibone. If I'm overweight, it's your fault.
Oh, nonsense. All you need's a little more exercise.
That's easier said than done, Pettibone. His lady friend doesn't like to let him go out afternoons, you know.
That's not true. My time is absolutely my own.
Well, I was going to ask you, could you play in our poker game tonight?
Oh, no. He's got to spend the evening choosing his wedding guests.
Oh, is that so?
Maybe that's his idea of a good time. Now, Throckmorton, should we invite Auntie Grace and Uncle Henry?
Hey.
Whatever you say, dear.
No, cut it out, Pettibone.
The wedding just won't be a wedding unless we invite Cousin Percival.
Hooker, I'm warning you.
I can't stand Cousin Percival.
Powers, would you care to step outside?
I can't, you darn fool. I haven't got any clothes on.
Oh. Well, then cancel my subscription to your newspaper. Today.
Don't you want to read about your hole-in-one?
Cancel it tomorrow.
Now, boys. Eddie, where are those coats? Eddie!
Coming, Judge.
Well, what about this poker game, Gildersleeve?
Gentlemen, I'm at your service. And I'll show you that in poker as in golf, Lady Luck sits on the shoulder of the best player.
Oh, for the love of...
He's just jealous, that's all.
Locker room. Just a minute. For you, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Oh, thank you, Eddie. Some gentleman calling me?
Gentlemen? No, sir. No, indeedy. Step up and tell her you're going to play poker tonight, Gildy.
Let's hear you put her in her place, Throckmorton.
Remember, Gildersleeve, never ask a woman. Tell her.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell her. Hello? Oh, hello, Leila. Yes, I decided I'd play a little The doctor said I needed some exercise. Fellas, please. But Leila, I didn't understand it was definite for this afternoon. But I thought if I...
This program comes to you by electrical transcription.
But Leila...
Tell her about the poker.
Oh, Leila, there's... No, we'll cut that out, Powers. What was that, Leila? Oh, Leila, don't say that. Don't cry, Leila. I've got good news for you. Yeah, I made a hole-in-one.
We were sailing along.
Quiet, fellas. But Leila. Please, fellas. But Leila. Oh, shut up. Quiet. Not you, Leila. Leila. Now, look what you did. My girl hung up on me.
May 9th, 1943, The Great Gildersleeve on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 80 years ago is next. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Thanks for spending part of your Tuesday with us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And this hour, an episode of The Great Gildersleeve starring Harold Peary, as it was originally broadcast on Sunday, May 9th, 1943. In the newspapers of that Sunday, 80 years ago, these were some of the headlines. Remnants of the beaten Axis African Army, devoid of supply bases and air support, were herded along the bomb-ridden road skirting the Gulf of Tunis yesterday toward Cap Bon Peninsula with Allied armor and infantry in relentless pursuit, which will end only when the last Axis soldier in Africa is dead or captured. Dawn saw stubborn Axis pockets of resistance still fighting on isolated hill positions after the streets of Tunis and Bizerte had been cleared, but the enemy was not expected to be able to put up any real delaying action except possibly in the mountains and at the base of Cap Bon Peninsula. The U.S. providing tanks, guns, and equipment and planning to help build a great French army in North Africa. Don Whitehead, writing for Associated Press, reporting from Casablanca, says before this rearmament program is completed, a French army of at least 11 divisions with the same organizational structure as the American army will be equipped with the newest implements of war and trained in American combat methods by experts of the U.S. Fifth Army. Reporting from the Allied headquarters in Australia, a small transport, its decks and superstructure congested with Japanese soldiers, was fired and sunk yesterday in the second straight day of heavy Allied air attacks on Madang, New Guinea. 3 bombs hit from mast height sent the ship to the bottom near Madang Spine Harbor on New Guinea's north coast, and another bomb hit started a small cargo vessel to sinking. The enemy showed its more aerial opposition than it had in recent weeks, sending up 13 fighters to oppose the Allied medium bombers and long-range fighters. Russian troops pouring through an elaborate defense girding Novorossiysk today threatened to inflict a staggering defeat on Axis Caucasus forces and produce another debacle in quick succession to the Allied triumph in Tunisia. The midnight Moscow communique recorded by the Soviet Monitor, disclosed that a coordinated Russian infantry, artillery, and air offensive had smashed an intricate German network of pillboxes, dugouts, and other well-fortified areas within 9 miles of the key port. Riding roughshod over the opposition of Treasury experts and its own leaders, the Senate Finance Committee voted 13-7 approval on a Rumi-flavored pay-as-you-earn tax bill, excusing either the 1942 or 43 taxes, whichever is lower, of all persons with net incomes. 5 Democrats combined with 8 Republicans to send these to the Senate floor. A revised version of the Rumi-Carlson measure rejected by a 4-vote margin in the House and called inequitable by Treasury General Counsel Randolph Paul this week. A wrathful Congress last night threatened to throw a monkey wrench into the administration's announced intent to roll back food prices by means of a $380 million subsidy program. Chairman Clarence Cannon, the Democrat of Missouri of the powerful House Appropriations Committee, predicted that the House would seek to bar the program, which would be financed by Reconstruction Finance Corporation funds, possibly through an amendment to the RFC Act to prohibit use of those funds for subsidy payments. Cannon, who termed subsidies unsound and un-American, led a recent victorious House fight to prohibit the use of soil conservation funds for subsidy payments to farmers. A strike of nearly 2,000 coal miners in protest against $1 a day fines for unauthorized work stoppages apparently lessening in Ohio and Pennsylvania as union leaders, including John L. Lewis, the international president of the UMW, urged the men to return to their jobs. Going back to Africa for a moment, the lighter side along the roads to Tunia and Bizert, 2 Negro truck drivers from Memphis, Private Jerry Lurks and Corporal Chick Rogers, dove into a foxhole when German planes began spattering anti-personnel bombs in their area. Both played vigorously and loudly. Suddenly, Chick said, "Pray a little softer, will you? The pilot's likely to hear you." Which Jerry said, "To hell with the pilot. I want to make sure the Lord hears me." And those some of the day's top news stories, as reported in the newspapers of Sunday, May 9th, 1943, right in the middle of World War II, as you can tell. On your radio, Harold Peary is the Great Gildersleeve, and we'll hear the conclusion next on this Tuesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. The 6:30 time slot that the Great Gildersleeve had really did not have a ton of opposition. The Mutual Network was running Upton Close's commentary. CBS was running Sergeant Gene Autry, of course, in the military at that point in time. And the Blue Network was running the Free World Theater. And, of course, at that point in time, Harold Peary was the lead-in to Jack Benny. So, it was kind of a no-brainer that he got a lot of audience from that as well. It was a busy night on NBC. That was followed, Jack Benny, as I said, then the Fitch Bandwagon, and Charlie McCarthy at 8 o'clock. It was, and then One Man's Family at 8:30 East, and these are all Eastern times, so that gives you an idea. Not much of note on CBS at all, really, at that point in time. But at this point in time on Wednesday, Marie Wilson, my friend Irma. Jimmy's going to be thrilled. This is from May 10th, 1948, 75 years ago, Bon Voyage. Richard is leaving on a trip to England. Jane and all her friends go down to the Queen Mary to see him off. That'll be on Wednesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And, of course, anytime you can catch up on shows you miss. We do 21 hours a week. You can hear them all at classicradio.stream, classicradio.stream. Now the conclusion of the Great Gildersleeve from 80 years ago, May 9th, 1943.
Now returning to the Great Gildersleeve, we find him glumly finishing up his supper with Leroy, while Marjorie, dressed to go out, sits waiting impatiently for her boyfriend Ben.
Mr. Gildersleeve, I hate to see you peck at your food like this. I ain't seen you eat such a light supper since the day you took Leroy to the circus.
Well, I can't help it, Bertie. Marjorie, don't you want something to eat? A little celery?
No, thank you. I'm mad now, and I'll just wait for Ben if I starve to death. Where are you going, anyhow? We were supposed to go to Bishop's Chop House for dinner, but we're so late now we'll never get a table. So we'll stand there for an hour, and by that time the meat will be gone, and by the time we've finished our chicken a la king, we'll be too late for the first show at the Majestic, so we'll stand in line there for an hour. The guy's probably run out of gas again. Wouldn't be at all surprised.
Now, don't be too hard on the boy, my dear. He probably didn't mean to be late.
Oh, you men always stand up for each other.
Now, Ben's a nice boy, but I don't think you ought to mope over him.
No, fair one, do not pine for Benjamin. Oh, for goodness sake. There is another who could love thee truly till death do us part. Kiss me. Oh, stop it, Leroy. Let me take you in my arms. Let me fold you to my bosom. Let me...
Leroy, stop that dribble.
Oh, gee, I was just trying to cheer things up a little. You and Marge are so lovesick, it's terrible. I am not
Neither am
lovesick.
I.
Mr. Gildersleeve, could I interest you in a little dessert? It's chocolate pudding with vitamins B, D, and G.
Chocolate pudding? Bertie, we've been having chocolate pudding all the time lately.
Well, Mr. Gildersleeve, we ain't had chocolate pudding since week ago Tuesday. And I believe that was raspberry.
Huh? Give both helpings to Leroy, Bertie. I'm not myself this evening.
Not by a plateful. I'll go, Mr. Gildersleeve.
Well, there he is. 45 minutes late.
Good evening, Mr. Ben.
Oh, good evening, Bertie. Hello, Marjorie. Mr. Gildersleeve.
Hello, Ben.
Leroy.
Oh, Ben. Well, good evening. Ben, you didn't by any chance run out of gas, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Bingo!
Leroy.
Yeah, but that wasn't the reason I...
Ben, Waterford, you make me so mad I could spit.
But gosh,
Here we are an hour late, and we'll miss dinner, and we'll miss the show.
But Marjorie...
Now you can wait for me for a change. I'm going upstairs and change my dress.
Gosh.
Ben, my boy, they're all alike.
Well, Mr. Gildersleeve, if all the women act like that, all the men must be crazy.
They are.
We are crazy, we are crazy, we are nuts, oh, we are nuts. Happy little morons, happy little morons.
Leroy, that will do. You may leave the room, young man.
Oh, Unc, I want to hear you and Ben discuss dames.
Yep. Young man, go instantly.
Okay, what a character.
What was that?
Nothing at all, Unc.
He's a great kid.
He's a pain in the neck.
Well, that too. Gee, suppose Marge is ever coming down?
Oh, yes, my boy. Just want you to worry a little.
Well, I am.
When she comes down, there's just one thing to remember, Ben. Never ask a woman. Tell her.
Tell him.
That's the secret.
That sounds like one of those good theories, but you don't know if she'll fly till you get her in the wind tunnel.
Huh? Oh. Yeah. Well, you take an example now, Ben. Take the case of a certain party I know. We'll call him Mr. A. He played golf recently when his fiancée expected him to spend the afternoon at her house.
Was she sore?
Oh, brother.
Well, Ben, have you got enough gas to get us downtown?
Well, sure. I had a gallon in the back seat, but that wasn't what made me late.
It wasn't.
No, I was fixing up this little kind of a present for you. I hope you... Oh, here.
Oh, Ben, why didn't you tell me? Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
Gosh, what about me?
Oh, I just can't wait to look at it. Have you got a knife?
Oh, I left it in my other pants. New suit.
Here's my cigar cutter. No good for cigars, but fine for string. Here.
Oh, twin bracelets. Oh, Ben, they're beautiful.
I made them myself. Made them out of piston rings. I polished them on the lathe down at the shop.
I thought they were handcuffs, my boy.
Oh, Uncle Mort.
Huh?
Oh, they're just lovely. Ben, you were so sweet.
Thanks. Well, shall we get started?
Yes, if you've forgiven me.
Forgive you? Oh, gosh.
Well, good night, Uncle Mort.
Good night, my dear. Good night, my boy. Oh, Ben.
Yeah?
I think you've solved the problem of Mr. A.
hello, Mr. Gildersleeve. Kind of thought I'd be seeing you today.
Say, Peavy, you've got to help me out.
Well, that's what we druggists are in business for.
Peavy, have you ever been in a spot where you had to think fast how to please a woman?
Mr. Gildersleeve, I've never been out of it.
Well, I'm in that spot right now, Peavy. I got into a little trouble this afternoon, sort of fell among thieves, and now I've got to go over and face her. I thought maybe if I brought her a little gift of some kind, kind of dazzle her and take her mind off things.
Very difficult to do. Very.
Yeah, it is, huh? You don't think she'd accept a gift?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. She'll accept your gift, all right, but then she'll get right back to the point.
Oh, I see.
Unless you happen to hit upon some particular weakness.
Weakness? How do you find that?
Well, the only way I know is trial and error. Now, in my own case, I was fortunate.
Oh?
I discovered Mrs. Peavy's weakness early.
Oh, what is her weakness? Maybe it would give me a clue.
Well, sir, I remember it was Atlantic City on our honeymoon. We were staying at the Breakers. Mrs. Peavy came into a small sum of money just before we were married, so we stayed there overnight.
Yeah. Oh, well, go on, Peavy.
Quite an establishment, the Breakers. Quite an establishment. I remember John Philip Sousa was opening at the Steel Pier that same weekend, and we...
You've told me about that, Peavy. Get to the point, will you? What was it you discovered about Mrs. Peavy?
Well, it's a funny thing. That woman has a positive mania for saltwater taffy.
Yes. Taffy?
Saltwater taffy. I bought her a 2-pound box there on the boardwalk, and I never heard another word out of her the whole trip. Of course, saltwater taffy is pretty sticky stuff.
Yes. Peavy, you've just given me an idea.
What's that?
Have you got any saltwater taffy?
No, Mr. Gildersleeve, I haven't. I'm sorry.
Then what's the use of telling me all this? Peavy, you can waste more time than any living mortal I know.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I haven't any saltwater taffy, but I'll tell you what I have got.
Yeah, what?
Some nice assorted chocolates. And they're hard to get these days.
Just the thing. Wrap it up, Peavy.
I have them already wrapped. It saves time.
Oh.
That'll be $1.63.
Okay, here.
Oh, Mr. Gildersleeve, there's just one thing. Perhaps I should have thought of it before.
Yeah, what was that?
The selection of chocolates you have there contains rather a large proportion of chewy pieces.
Well, that's all right. What about it?
Merely a precaution. You don't mind if I ask rather a personal question?
Go ahead, Peavy. You're a druggist.
About the lady in question.
Are
her teeth, shall we say, her own?
I've never asked her, Peavy, but I have every reason to believe that they are. Good day.
Good day, Mr. Gildersleeve, and good luck.
We were sailing along on Moonlight Bay. We could hear the voices singing. They seemed to say,
Well,
you have stolen my... Don't go away.
Mr. Gildersleeve, will you kindly take your foot out of my door?
Leila, let me explain. You didn't give me a chance this afternoon. You see, this thing came up.
I have heard all the explanation I care to, Throckmorton. I am not interested in any explanations that come from locker rooms.
Leila, I've been a foolish boy, and I'm sorry. I've come to ask your forgiveness.
Well, there are some things a woman just can't forgive, Throckmorton. And one of them is when a person says he'll go over an invitation list with her, and then he doesn't.
But, Leila, wait a minute. Look, I brought you a present.
Present?
All for you.
Well, you can come in, but only for a minute.
Leila, you're an angel. You know, sometimes I think I don't know how lucky I am.
Sometimes I don't think you do either, Throckmorton.
Here, from me to you, with love.
Well, maybe I have been too hard on you.
Sure, a man can make mistakes. Go ahead and open it. After all, we're all human. You wouldn't love me if I weren't human, would you, Leila?
No, I guess not, Throckmorton. Gracious, I'm so excited. I wonder what's in it.
Oh, I'll tell you. It's candy.
Candy?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so long since I've had any. Throckmorton, you're a...
Leila, what is it?
Mr. Gildersleeve, you may take your candy and go elsewhere with it.
Huh?
Here.
What's this? What if you're careworn and wrinkled? What if your hair's turned to gray? To me, you'll always be Mother, the dear one we honor today. Oh, Peavy!
Brothers, you better be lucky tonight. I've got all ready to deal out.
Well, hello, boys. Make lots of noise. Deal me in.
Gildersleeve.
Well, I'll be darned.
You're surprised to see me, huh, fellas? I told you I'd be here. Deal me in.
I never thought you'd make it. How'd you get away?
No problem at all. I simply said, Leila, I promised the boys I'd play poker tonight, and I always keep my promises. And she said, all right, dear, just whatever you think best. Good night, everybody.
Music on this program was under the direction of Claude Sweeten. This is Ken Carpenter speaking for the Kraft Cheese Company and inviting you to listen in again next week for the further adventures of the Great Gildersleeve.
May 9th, 1943, The Great Gildersleeve here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Would you please thank this radio station, support their advertisers, their kindness and courtesy allow us to be with you each and every time you roll around on your favorite station. If you're shopping online, check mystore.com. Mystore.com has all sorts of special offerings made in America. Try to help our country. Save American jobs. Use my promo code Wyatt when you go to mystore.com. Also, go to my webpage, classicradio.stream. Stream our shows. Learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can find our social media links, and you can also contact me there. And you can buy me a copy to help us maintain our distribution channels and also help us acquire additional classic radio collections. Classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.